So, if I want a brochure to give to my salespeople to go show, here's our latest digital camera, the supply chain is everything that happens from the time you sit with your advertising agency, design that brochure, create the digital image of that brochure, print that brochure, which, by the way, you got to go buy the paper, you got to buy the inks, you got to find a printer. And what happens when you print something? Two things. You either have to then worry about putting it into the mail stream and distributing it, or putting it into a warehouse that then people order that you have to go pick and then put into the mail stream. Once it gets there, then you have to worry about how does it get destroyed? How does it get confidentially taken care of? How does it get fulfilled? So that entire supply chain is the expertise that we've been building over the last 3 to 4 years. And so companies are saying to us, wow, if you saved Hewlett-Packard, now what's 40% of $250 million? $100 million. Wow. They pay me $25 million to give them $100. It's a pretty good deal, right? Can I make money, $25 million of fees? So I have 10 people on site. How much do I pay each person? Say $100,000 times 10 is $1 million. So if I'm getting revenues of $25 million and I have $1 million of expenses, am I doing pretty good? I like that business. Next question. Anybody? Thank you. So we go out and offer services to customers, to answer your question, that range from one project that says, oh my gosh, I have 10 print shops in Boston. I don't know whether I should have 1 or I should have 20. God bless you. Will you come here and tell us what to do? So we'll put 5 consultants on site for 3 weeks, 3 months. We'll look at their contracts. We'll look at their workflow. We'll talk to the people that use that service, because voice of customer, something in here, VOC, is very important. And we'll figure out, here's where you are today. From our benchmarks and our other studies, here's where you could be. Here are the gaps. And in there we'll do SWOT analysis. All you guys know this stuff. We really do use it. It's not just listening to these fine professors here tell you about SWOTs and gap analysis and all that stuff. We'd use it. And then we do what? If we say to them, and this, by the way, was another defining moment for me in 1996, during the Atlanta Olympic Games, there was a company called UPS that was running a commercial on TV. I don't know if any of you remember it, but UPS and their big brown trucks, this was before they were brown, right, came on with 2 consultants talking to a decision maker saying, you need to re-engineer this, you need to do this, and you need to do that. And the customer says, okay, let's do it. And the 2 consultants look at themselves and look at the customer and say, we don't actually do what we say, we just say it. And I vowed that day that I was never going to be that kind of a consultant. That if I told somebody, here's where you are, here's where you should be, that I should be fully prepared to tell them how to go from here to there, and to put my people in and actually to do that service for the customer. And so that's kind of what's happened with Raytheon. Raytheon said, I need help here. We fixed that. We told them this is where they could be. They said, I buy that. They then said, we'd like the technology you have to help us. So I was thinking, okay, I get $1 million technology sale out of this. This is fine. And then they came back and said, you know what? You can do this better than we could ever do it. So we converted that $1 million sale into now an $850,000 per year services contract for the next 5 years. So again, not as good as the HP deal, but still $4 to $5 million worth of revenue. I'll have 3 to 4 people on site, $300,000 to $400,000 in costs against $5 million in revenue, still doing okay. I don't get to keep all that. Trust me. I have bills to pay too, and I have a corporate, company to earn my keep as well. But it lets me grow. It lets me continue to change. It lets me evolve. Because one of the things in leadership is what? Leadership is all about driving change. Because if you don't change, you've seen what happened to companies like Kodak that didn't change fast enough, and how they can't now cut fast enough to stay sustainable. Next question. Anybody? Yes?
How did you go from like just your one-person business when you branched off from Kodak to like your like first 4 or 5 employees? How did that work? Just like deciding I want to go from just me to like employees.
So the first customer I had was a utility out in Southern California called Sempra Energy. It's when LA Public Works and San Diego Gas and Electric merged. They had their way of doing it, they had their way of doing it. Both thought they were the right ones, and they hired me to come in and tell them who was right and who was wrong. Actually, they were both right, just in different ways, but everybody wants to be deletive. You know, you're bad, I'm good. Whereas I try to say, you both have merits, and how do we make this thing where together we're stronger than either would be apart, right? So they said to me, we got to figure this out. Okay, I figured that out. Doing it all myself, traveling back and forth to California every week was great for frequent flyer mileage and nothing else. Terrible on the family life, but sacrifices at that time. I had to get my son's $40,000 of tuition paid with no money. That was a pretty strong motivator, right? And so they asked me to do a certain thing. I said, okay. They said, well, can you do this? I said, okay. And they said, well, how about doing this? I'm like, okay. And pretty soon I was like we're doing at Raytheon, where I'm managing a multi-million-dollar project, and I needed somebody to work on site. And one person wasn't enough, so we had 3 or 4 people. And then like, okay, I got to go do this other project. Someone else needs to look over that while I'm over here. We just did it again over there. And then we did it over again there. Always driven by customer. I always looked at my consulting as a way to get the customer to pay for my R&D. The customer was funding my sales efforts. By getting the consulting, paid for that, now I can go hire people. I never had to go out and hire people in advance of making that bet. So even to this day, I never developed technology until I knew I had a customer that was willing to pay for it. God bless you. So it was just one at a time. And now when I was acquired 5 years ago, now I had to scale. I had to scale to support an existing sales force of 1,000 people. So now I had to go out and hire in advance because I knew that that tsunami-like wave was about to crush me. Yes?
While we're talking about money, I know that I've heard you speak before, but for the benefit of others who may not have, what is your sort of pyramid in like what you place first as far as like God, family, like that? What is your personal order of priority? That's a pretty personal question. And I can assure you that God was not always number one, or that my family was ever number one. I always tried to make family number one. I failed miserably many times. Daily, I screw up. And that's a hard thing to keep in order. Earlier today we were talking about that, and I can't remember the question that was asked. I said that Ken was perfect, and and he quickly said, no, he's not. And we're all human, and we're all going to err. And so I think in different parts of my life I've had to make sacrifices and trade-offs. There's certain times when family was more important. Certain times when necessity said, you know what, I've just got to go on the road, and I'm sorry, honey, I love you, but I got to go work. I know you got 3 little kids, but I got to go and do this. The toughest thing is always remaining humble. It's humility. And so as some of you know, I have a farm, and so whenever I'm home, I'm out there mucking stalls, cleaning horse poop, giving the horse a better life than what I have, because I don't have anybody cleaning my poop, my bed, feeding me, watering me, and doing that sort of thing. So that keeps me humble and keeps it real. But I think the goal is always to have God first, family second. I think there are sacrifices you make. I was a college scholarship golfer. But because of my travel requirements, I couldn't say to my family that I've been gone all week. On the weekends, I'm home. I'm going to go play golf, see you in 6 hours. Or if Rachel had a horse show, we had to go and do that, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I always tried to be there in their events, but relied on a strong partnership with my wife to be there when I couldn't. And not to sit there and tell the kids, oh, isn't Daddy terrible? He's never here. So it takes a partnership to help keep your priorities straight.